Turkey naturally is rather alarmed about this, but as long as they have Britain, they are safe. However, things still move on, and now the Franco-Prussian War is 20 years ago, and people are happier now. So the tension is reduced, especially as Germany supports French ambitions in Africa and other parts of the world, Indochina and so on. And then, at the same time, Britain and France are still rivals, and you nearly get a conflict that could have turned into a big international war. Britain is still rivals with Russia, but something new has happened. Britain gives up support of Turkey. And what has happened is that people now are much more literate, and news travels much more fast. And Turkish Janissaries have committed an atrocity in Bulgaria that gets into the news, whereas if they had done it 50 years before, nobody would ever have heard about it. And now it's in the news, it's on the Times, and Turkey's international reputation is severely damaged. That is, of course, not Turkey, but the Ottoman Empire. And so, at the same time, Britain has a prime minister who is a theologian, and he does believe in right and wrong in politics, as opposed to Bismarck. And he says, we cannot carry on supporting a country that does things like this. So they withdraw their support of Turkey. And this, of course, means that once the protection is withdrawn, Turkey is much weaker, and therefore it's going to need friends. At the same time, it's much more easy for others to consider how to break with Turkey altogether, which they're going to do within 20 years. And so Russia naturally supports Serbia, one of the countries that they have a long-standing relationship with, against Turkey, and Serbia asserts more and more its own independence, but not in the modern borders of Serbia, but with Belgrade at the northern limit. And Russia is hungry, and Turkey is alarmed. So, all the same, there are things that can go wrong, but all the same, the Triple Alliance is there in place. Germany is quite secure, and basically Germany is surrounded by people who hate each other. What has Germany got to worry about? Everybody who could possibly be a threat has got a bigger headache somewhere else. So then the question is, why on earth did things go wrong then for Germany? Well, it starts with Kaiser Wilhelm II realizing that it can't be friends with both Russia and Austria and keep its promise to both of them. Now, Bismarck was perfectly happy to have a non-aggression pact with Russia that he knew he could not keep. As long as Russia wasn't aware that Bismarck couldn't keep his promise, he was going to leave them with their illusions. However, Kaiser Wilhelm didn't agree, and he insisted that you had to resign from this. So they stopped the agreement with Russia, and Russia then asked, does that mean we are free to get our friends wherever we want? And the answer is yes. So they do. What happens is they form an alliance with France. Russia needs French money, France needs a counterbalance, and they need an ally. Britain is isolated and basically behaves as if it doesn't need anybody else. The continent, as they said once when there was fog, the continent is isolated because you couldn't cross the English Channel to the continent. It's not the British Isles are isolated from the continent, but the other way round. So Russia now has found an alliance with France and begins to receive French technology, French industry, French finance, and build up its capacity also to make war. At the same time, Germany takes over the protection of Turkey. And this is going to be a problem because Turkey, not really Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, goes all the way down to Baghdad and beyond. And if you build the Berlin-Baghdad railway, then you can take troops and arms all the way to Baghdad, and you do not need to worry about the British Navy because you can attack India overland. So the British are extremely uncomfortable about this and really not sure what Germany is thinking of. At the same time, Germany doesn't support Italy with its ambitions in North Africa. And this leads to Italy then finding a friend in France. And they enter into an agreement, a kind of, you have this bit, we'll have this bit, we will support you, you support us. And together they decide who's going to get what in North Africa. Now, consider what this does then. It means that people are used to, are learning new ways, and they're learning from experience. And the experience is that two countries that both really wanted North Africa can agree and support each other so that both of them get a bit of what they want. So if France and Italy can do it, why not Britain and France? Now at the moment they're enemies. However, there's going to be something new happening, and the question is then, where are Britain and Britain and Germany going to end up? The way I have had it unexplained is like this. Britain began to realise that they needed support. And this particularly happens in the Boer War. Because when the Boer War happens, the possibility is that all the other colonial powers would attack Britain all at once and take its empire. So Britain realised it needed friends, and after all it was closely related to, literally through family ties, with Germany, and had a great deal to do with Germany. So they wanted an alliance with Germany. They then sent a diplomat to negotiate a possible alliance with Germany. The diplomat was extremely interested in making this happen. We want this to happen, was his basic message to Germany. But as all of you who are in the diplomatic corps know, when you are talking diplomacy, you have to be very careful what you say and how you say it. Because if you're not careful, you will give a wrong impression, and that is exactly what happened. He gave the impression that the British were rather desperate. The consequence is that on the German side, considering that the British were desperate, that meant that they could ask for more. So they came back with suggestions that were rather more than the British would like. Now, the diplomat who was handling the case was so eager to make this alliance happen that he went back to his bosses in London, and he tried to dampen the tone in the German answer so that it didn't sound as if they were demanding quite as much as they really were. So naturally his superiors then told him to go back and come with an increased demand from the British side, and sharpen the tone, which he tried his best not to do. So he came back with increased demands, but tried to word it as positively as he possibly could and overdid the job. Therefore, the German negotiators assumed that the British were really desperate and they were bluffing, so they sent back an equivalent message and continued to increase the demands. And the shuttle diplomat was all the time trying to dampen things down, but instead he organised it so that both sides were completely talking past each other. They simply didn't understand what the other one was saying. Finally, the British said, "We would prefer an alliance with Germany, but if we can't have it, well, we will find it somewhere else, with France, for example." And the German Prime Minister, Bethmann Hollweg, he misunderstood it completely. Because the British way, the way the British are, and I speak as a Brit, is that the British will negotiate with you and they will deal evenly handed with you and seek compromise with you as long as they believe you are in good faith. If they get the message, you are trying to double-cross us, you are trying to cheat us, you are not in good faith, you're just playing us along so that you can then do the dirty on us, then the British will turn around and become your bitter enemy. And that's exactly what happened to Argentina. The British were negotiating how to deal with the Malvinas, even though they knew the population didn't want to be Argentino, but they were trying to find a way of making it happen all the same. And then the generals invaded, and so the British sailed halfway around the world and took the Malvinas back, which, of course, I mean, it's a war that should never have happened, but it did. So things move on, and here we are. This is the basic situation. But Britain is seeking its alliance. Italy is irritated because Germany, several times under Kaiser Wilhelm, who's a rather temperamental guy, refuses and almost threatens the situation. And so Italy is not as keen on Germany and Austria-Hungary as it was. At the same time, a new prime minister or foreign minister has come to power in France, and he says as long as the Germans are in Alsace and Lorraine, France has only one enemy. Therefore, he's willing to find friendship with Britain. And as I said, the British have now got their mutual misunderstanding of of Germany, and at the same time, Germany is building its new fleet. And of course, by now, because of industrial developments, every time you come with a new kind of weapon, it makes everybody else's weapons obsolete. And new modern warships were making the whole of the British Navy obsolete. So when Germany begins to decide to build a war fleet, the British then say, every time the Germans build a ship, we're going to build two, because we're not going to let them have more ships than us. So Germany is developing this very dangerous fleet, and so people who want this alliance between Britain and Germany invite Kaiser Wilhelm to have an interview with the Telegraph. And in this interview with the Telegraph, he more or less talks out of the top of his head, rather like some of the accusations of George Bush that he could sometimes say incredibly stupid things if you let him. And what happens is that he manages to say many things. He more or less managed to irritate absolutely everybody. The British had had this war in South Africa, the Boer War, and he said that France and Russia had come to Germany, had suggested to Germany that they should all attack Britain at the same time and take their empire away. But Germany